I've been covering a lot of Sun and Moon Inyu from the current Classic Cups, so it's only natural that I give at least a little bit of love to Gen 8 Inyu today. And I've got a couple series that I thought were very, very fun. Some of the games are very short, but I thought they still show something really nice about the metagame, specifically Kyo series, where you are going to see the swiftest of Glastrier games and why that mon has picked up so much steam in this metagame over the ending of the meta and as it phased into a bastion of Inyu. Of course, before we get too far into it, I do want to give a little reminder to please go and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. We're going to be hitting 10k by the end of the year, but I need your help to do that. So help a brother out. You know what? If you are subscribed, go leave a like while you're down there. Leave a comment. What do you like about Gen 8 Inyu? What Pokemon you finding fun? Of course, before we get into the Glastrier game, I can't just jump right into it, man. I've been doing that too much for y'all. Y'all are spoiled. So first, you get a Rotom showcase. Now, Rotom-Mow, for those of you that were not keeping up with Inyu too much in Gen 8, Rotom-Mow was suspect tested at one point. It did not get banned, but remains a top probably 2 Pokemon in the tier alongside Silvally Ground. This mon is absolutely insane. Incredible roll compression, great Scarfer, general just good mon all around. And Kyo this game, he told me this game needed to be in a video. You're going to see probably the best played Rotom-Mow of all time. And I don't use that term lightly. We're going to get into this game. You see the Mantine let off with against the Mesmer. I guess we could actually, before we get into the game, talk about preview. This Vileplume is a menace. Mostly because Drapion, it's not like a bad check by any stretch of the imagination. The problem with Drapion is that if it's Growth Plume, which isn't necessarily the most common set, but if it is Growth Plume, it does a lot of damage to the Drap. And Medea has at least some means of pivoting around the Drapion with the Talonflame, and even the Silvally Ground if they really need to go about that. So there's ways to play around the Swords Dancing Scorpion. And additionally, I mean, the Plume could just trade some hits. If Drapion is switching into Plume as it growths, it gets kind of bad pretty quickly. But if we look at Kyo's side, I think long term, you appreciate the Cofagrigus. There's a lot that stops it, but it also puts in a lot of work defensively against Medea's team, just making sure the Snorlax is limited, limiting Stacka, limiting Talon, limiting Valley. And if this Rotom-Mow can trick the Vileplume, that is the biggest roadblock, take it out of the game immediately. So you're going to see this game the ultimate cat and mouse. Does the Rotom-Mow get the trick off on the Valley, not the Valley, on the Plume, or does it not? So we see Mantine led versus the Mesprit. Mesprit probably Scarf based on Medea's team. It's just kind of slow, and you have a stack attacker, so odds are you wouldn't be stealth wrong on a Mesprit. So that's worth keeping in mind for later, as the Cofagrigus pivots into the Lax and then double switching into the Rotom-Mow, just so Kyo can maintain this momentum. It's always going to be a little rough for Medea to want to Volt block, just because Rotom-Mow could Leaf Storm your Valley, and then you lose one of your best chances against Kyo's team. Now the Vileplume comes out, and this is where you see the headache begin. So it's Togedemaru. This one doesn't do anything to Plume anyway, but it is a nice little option to just throw off whatever you really need to versus it. Kyo goes for a U-turn just to make sure something safely comes in, no risking any sort of switch. But here's where you see that it is a Growth Plume. And you're going to see what I was talking about earlier, where if Drapion is ever directly switching into Plume, it gets kind of dicey kind of quickly just because you take so much from Sludge. You see Medea go for a little Sapper there, just to make sure that the Plume stays at full health. That's generally important here. And she didn't opt for Giga Drain, because you do tank the knockoff, get a little bit extra HP back, and you could probably find an opportunity to sap again later. Unfortunately, the Talon gets absolutely Giga Smashed by that knock. No burn, and now the Valley multi-attacks into the Rotom-Mow. So once again, you're going to see a nice little double switch here. And the reason you double switched instead of volting, just so we have that clear, if this Swords Danced up and you volted this game, it just gets so much harder, so much quicker, because you don't know if it's Flame Charge yet. If it Flame Charges up, the Rotom-Mow is not going to outspeed it anymore. So you go Mantine instead, and you just make sure that it's still, it's a fine option into this, but it also covers what would potentially be switching into the Rotom-Mow, which would be Vileplume there. So Snorlax comes out now after the Scald has gotten on the Mantine. Gonna be able to try and threaten a curse, but there is always the Cofagrigus to come out, so you don't really care if it curses. Darkest Lariat could be a bit of an issue, though I don't really run Lariat that much anymore. It kind of died down once Bronzong left the tier for Aryu, so the Cofagrigus should be safe. And once again, now we see it play out how I was saying the sequence could get very dicey, where you don't want Drapion to come in directly on the Plume Growth thing because you don't really beat it anymore. But Kyo able to reposition himself very, very well there, bring in the Togedemaru on the Sludge, then you turn into the Mow, and once again, you're threatening Trick every time. And there it is. You also get the confirmation the Mespridus Scarf here, and the Vileplume's going to have to keep trying to play around that, or else it loses the game. So, Stack It Out brought in after a Leaf Storm drop. Drapion is a fine enough pivot here. You get a free knock, and you weren't going to die to Gyro Ball. You would have taken a good amount, but it's fine. And now, Mr. Horsch double switched in on the very, very easily telegraphed Silvally. And you can Quake here for free, you could Rock Up for free. Either is pretty safe. Plume comes back out. So, Thoughtmosis the third is the response. You're just going to see a Wish Pass here, probably into Drapion. Maybe even into Rotom-Mow if you think you could position it in after like a Giga Drain here. But the Drapion's what comes out. Kyo doesn't U-turn because you just take extra Helmet Chip. And we're going to see this Vileplume growth. Very, very scary. As once again, Kyo managing to find a good positioning with the Togedemaru. Going for another Wish as well as the Plume just continues to get stronger and stronger. So U-turn here. And this time the Mantine comes out because it is Hurricane. So you can potentially threaten this with some Chip and then maybe bring out like Drap to knock it. But unfortunately the Hurricane misses. So this forces Kyo to bring out the Mow again, just try to threaten a Trick. And, you know, it doesn't happen here again. Stacka comes out. Kyo Leaf Storming a Stacka, not having the Trick there, so he preserves the Trick Scarf for later. He forced the Plume out just with the threat of the Trick. So now once again gives Kofa a switch in. Dodges a Toxic, but you'll see later it doesn't actually matter because the Cofagrigus is Rest. As now we see Drapion double switched in versus the Vileplume. So you freely set up, you can knock here for some Chip. Once again, this whole game is going to be Kyo trying to retain momentum against this Plume. You do not want it getting too many free turns. Horse now switches into the Valley. You could stay in and Quake again, you could switch if you want to predict the Plume. Either is a fine option. The Earthquakes, get some Chip on the Plume. Sap here is pretty likely, but you could see Giga Drain as well. So the Mow is brought in on the Strength Sap. And once again, do we see the Trick? The Stacka comes out. Did Kyo Trick? No, he volted. Also, something that's kind of underappreciated maybe, is that this Valley, or maybe, I say underappreciated, more that Kyo never got a Valley turn wrong, but maybe something that was underutilized by Medea as well. Try to use the Ground Valley a little bit more, especially once the Mantine goes down, as a means to punish Mow. You only really fear Leaf Storm. The other moves, and presumably at this point, it's like, we see Scald Hurricane. It could be Defog Tine, but presumably this is not Wisp. So, it's like T-Bolt or Nastapult at last. Especially at this point in the game, if you're able to get Valley in, you only really need one more switch in with it multi-attacking the Mudstale, to have another Sword Stance in the future be detrimental. It doesn't necessarily win you the game, of course, because the Mow would still be around. It could, even if it's at 12%, right? A Leaf Storm is going to dispatch the Valley, but I think maybe this could have been used a little bit more. Anyhow, Drapion brought out in that Volt Switch. Again, you just get to freely knock here. Garrett's Mr. Stack 'em up, stack 'em high. As Vileplume come out, Ground Valley comes out instead though, and again, this is now a free multi. Well, I say it's a free multi as there is this, but the Valley comes out, SD's up, does not want to stand and take a leaf, and Kyo actually feels that he used Foul Play last. I just forgot this turn happened. Foul Play, of course, to hit like Decidueye, for example. Not wanting to overly rely on Drapion to do that. The Cofagrigus though comes out, and we see Kyo double switch here into the Togedemaru, knowing that this Plume is going to continue being the answer of Medea's choice to the Cofagrigus. Until that mon is gone, yeah, it's going to be limited in how well it can set up. But now, Kyo looks for a Wish Pass, and Medea does greed a little bit too much there for the growth. The Motum is back, and it finally lands the trick. Medea goes for Sludge Bomb. It does KO the Rotom-Mow, but you cannot Look at how much work this thing put in through the game. I want to just go back there. We're going to get back to here. Look at all the work. We had the double switch here for the Volt chip, or Volt momentum into there. We had, where was it? I think, nah. I was trying to find it later. There was the KO there, but excellent pivot into here, into double switch into Mantine just to cover a potential, you know, I switch into this while still keeping a good matchup versus Ground Valley. Where was the next one? Here, no. Oh, again, they'll force that out. Trick here could have been a little bit bad, but you tricked into that, and then you got some Leaf Storm chip on the Mesprit, which helps set up for Kofagregious later. Just getting chip there is really, really good. This was where, yeah, the Vileplume boost a million times, Hurricane dodged, but the threat of Trick was enough to force that out, and you even leafed. So you got a huge amount of damage there. And of course, Leaf just to deny that. And then you got the Mow again later on here. Once again, volting out, never getting a turn wrong. Switching on the multi-attack. Foul play for 3 damage. And it brought in, finally gets the Trick there. So now, Thautomosis the third comes out. Medea almost timering out too after getting tricked. She just had no clue what to do. Healing Wish passed here. Make sure you can bring back the Ground Valley, presumably. Yes, sir. And Zaman could still win the game, especially with Rotom-Mow down. This thing is a huge problem. Like, huge. And Swords Dance here is the right play again. You could potentially KO Horse with a crit. You could potentially just still beat the team down. Also, God, 95 is absurd. And then you get Toxic Tear. It's a little bit unfortunate. If the Mudsdale was not Protect, by the way, which it is, I think this had a chance to win. I'm not sure based on turns, especially knowing that this is Spiky Shield. But I almost want to say that this, without the extra Protect from Horse, I think had a shot. Maybe. I don't know. And yeah, multi-attacking into Spiky, maybe USD there instead, but I don't actually think it gives you another turn. I think you were still going to be... Actually, no, it would have given you another turn. Interesting. So, it wouldn't have mattered. There would have still been the sack at the end of, like, Mudsdale if you needed with the last Protect, and I think you have Horse left versus these two. And at this junction in the game anyway, you've got King Tut himself. Don't ask me to pronounce this. It's King Tut. The Iron Press Kofagregious. Iron Press Rest Talk as well. I said I've never actually seen this used before, but it will be able to just win because the Lax pretty clearly at this point does not have Lariat, so there's absolutely no way for it to break past this. No Terastallizing in this generation either, so you don't have to worry about this all of a sudden becoming a poison type and resisting your body press. It's so beautiful. Oh, I was about to say we have a blue screen. Now we get this game. And this is the one we were looking for, right? The Glastrier Dominance. So this is kind of a point about how a lot of the meta is driven in Sword and Shield. Perhaps not as of late. We've been hearing a lot more offense, or seeing a lot more offense used as of late in this generation, whether it's in UCL from last year, or if it's just even in Classic from some of the replays. You'll even see offense. And you should remember probably as well from the previous videos where we did some of the SS games. Lots of offense there too. But VAP balance, fat water balance, whichever you want to call it. I just said VAP because it's the best of them. Has typically been one of the best archetypes as well. Because it's so like, it's hard to say a reason beyond, it just builds itself. Like, you've got Vaporeon, and then like Quag/Gastro/Mantine is your options, and you can go like one of those 3 plus Stacka, or like VAP plus technically still Stacka, or like Caparaja. And then you get your ground type, which is usually going to be a Silvally ground or a Mudsdale maybe, and you pivot to Assault Vestrage. You get your Rotom-Mow, you get your Talonflame, and then you get your last Mon, usually a wall breaker of some kind. Ground Valley kind of counts as a wall breaker, but usually you want something a little more dedicated than it. And it just builds itself. Or you get a variant like this with the stack up plus a water ground. You still get your Talon. You still get your Rotom-Mow. You get your breaker here, and then you get like your last little Mon. And this is on this team is probably it could be Trick Plot. It could also be Defog on Scarf-Mow, and then maybe Talon's like bulk up. Regardless though, look at this team. And then look at Glast, and if you even think back to the kind of build-up of the team I did, just verbally too, Glast kind of just beats those teams because they're very reliant on the water type, of course, do a lot of heavy lifting. And, well, Glass just doesn't lose to them. You are faster, and if faster than most of them. The one that you're not faster than is Mantine, and that could be a little annoying, but Glass is really bulky, able to sub up on Vaporeon Scald, Gastrodon Scald, Quagsire Scald, and then Quag's a little obviously awkward for different reasons, but think about it through Vaporeon for a moment. You sub up, you Sword Stance, and they can't two-shot your sub. So you can perpetually keep a substitute up until you KO the Vaporeon, or in this case the Gastrodon. And it just makes the game very easy, because those builds fall apart when that water type goes down. They are very reliant on the Vaporeon or Gastrodon for their cohesion, especially the Vaporeon variants. And here you just got Kyo with some nice glassed offense. I don't know what the Sandaconda's doing here, but presumably he liked it more than Mudsdale because it's a little faster. Maybe he likes the glare. Rest with Shed Skin's pretty cool as well, just to have that longevity. Aspects like that I could see lending you to Sanda. And he correctly analyzes too. What does Medea have for a lead Glastrier? Gas. Well, true, this mon is gas. What does she have for a lead Glast? Look at this. It just sets up and wins. There is nothing that she can do. I'm not even gonna narrate. I'm just gonna keep talking bad about Gastrodon. You look at this pathetic mon. It can't do anything to this class. The flinch doesn't even matter. Okay, sure, you sub and break, or you scald and break the sub. Okay, I'm setting another one right back up. Like, I do not care. Talonflame comes out. Okay, break my sub now. Ice Crash, bop bop bop. Okay, well, sub first, but, you know, Ice Crash the next turn. Oh my god, I didn't even, okay. I forgot the Brave Bird wouldn't break the sub too. Is, again, kind of, what's the word? Symbolic. Very symbolic of how this mon just dominates these teams. What was this? What was she supposed to do though? This mon outspeeds here and here, potentially this, but you should be faster than a class. That would be kind of sinful. But you outspeed two of the key defensive components. This one can't even one-shot your sub. Rotom-Mow, if it Leaf Storms, you're just gonna sub down until the Leaf Storm doesn't break your sub. So that's no good. Drapion, I mean, sure, it breaks your sub, but then it just gets dropped. And then Eggy, I don't know, man. I just look, offense versus a low-lead Executor, I'm not moved by the Neck Boy. I love that mon, but come on. And yeah, now I got a series of Phantom and Luis. Sure. Phantom brought some very fun offense. Phantom of the Opera is here, and he is now. Hopefully it's not a Silvally Ghost, because the last time I saw him use a Silvally Ghost, that was exploded into a Protect Snorlax, and that's no good. Anyhow, I'm almost positive this team has been used before, and I want to say it's Moonblast Gorgeist. I'm almost certain I've seen it. I don't know. But look at Phantom's team. This team's almost fully physical as well. If it's Moonblast Gorg, I guess it's not fully physical, but Moonblast Gorg's a little bit of a meme. And then you're gonna be SD Drapion though, maybe SD on a Scavalier. Aerodactyl Stealth Rock on that team. And then you've got Ground Valley here. Obviously it's Sword Stance and then Mantine for your Fog. I don't really know how you break things like Lax and Scrafty. If they're bulk up at least. And since it's a Phantom team, I would assume bulk up. Because he's a real big fan of these slow hyper offense teams. And yeah, like Scrafty, again, if he just was like Moonblast Gorg, I guess you technically have a way to pressure it. And you've got the Mantine. It's just a little rough. And Kingdra would love to see this Mantine come out. Free focus energy. And then you get to run the gamut of, okay, are you Shell Armor? Or are you Overcoat? Or, yeah, no, Shell Armor, Overcoat, they don't run Swarm. So there's that. And again, even like Lax, I don't really think this team wants to face Lax. Partly because the coverage is annoying. You gotta suss out what move it has, because if you're Heat Crashing into Scavalier, well, that just drops. So that's no good. Let's see. So, Aerodactyl led, because it's going to set Stealth Rock, and you don't really care what happens with this mon anyway. You try to lead with it, see what you can do. So, this gets a little bit of chip as well on the Escavalier on the follow-up. They are going to stay in and eat this Rock Blast. So, any damage on this is still good. Kingdra likes it, even Ground Valley kind of likes it, because this can have a little physical bulk, and maybe you don't one-shot it then with multi. So this is all good chip. As now Scrafty comes out, and you are seeing a team without a fairy type. So, Scrafty-like. So it's going to bulk up again. The Ground Valley's going to try and Swords Dance up a couple times, potentially help it break through the Scrafty. Unfortunately for Ground Valley, it is cleanly 2-hit KO'd by Drain, and multi-attack does not do nearly enough to one-shot. Now the Scrafty's back at over half. And since the Mantine did not come out, I think that confirms it's just not Hurricane. I think it's Scald, Toxic, Roost, Defog. So the Gore comes out. I will say, this is very disrespectful of Phantom to not switch out. Especially since, as I said, I'm almost positive this team is a known team. So, and maybe it was changed to not be Moonblast Goregeist, or maybe it's just another team that looks similar to this one that I'm thinking of. But regardless of that, the Gorg drops, and now the Scrafty versus the Mantine. Again, this is not Hurricane, so this just rests up, and yeah. So, like, with this kind of team, you certainly have to edit it, right? Because getting tabled by Scrafty that badly is just sinful. If you're asking why they didn't go Aerodactyl, it doesn't have a flying move. This is a Gen 8 Aerodactyl. There is no Supersonic Sky Strike to be had. And since it's not banded, it's not going to have, like, Aerial Ace. So it's probably just Edgequake with Stealth Rock Roost. And that's no good. But I think you have to be Hurricane Mantine on that kind of build, or at least Moonblast on this. Even Guzzlord would give this team at least a little issue from a breaker standpoint, because you don't love Escavaliers you're switching because you're getting hit by, like, Banded Knockoff, for example. Banded Knock will even do plenty to these too. You got EQ to threaten this as well, and this has to potentially get outraged. They're just very difficult mons to play around. Dark types on the whole, just I don't like this team's matchup into dark types. You gotta change something there though. Anyhow, next game. This team looks miserable. And I don't mean that as a slight against the user. That is not a team that I think works well in this kind of meta. But it's mostly because I don't know what the team's goal is at all. Like, this is presumably Silvally Steel, because you don't have a Steel type. And Silvally Steel's kind of okay in this tier. It's not the best, but it's not a bad Pokemon. So, my guess is you try to break with Gallade to set up something for this late game. Then you have Trick Scarf here, Fizz Def, Wish Pass. Arcanine in this meta is kind of like, it could be anything. It could even be a better Pokemon. You know. But, it's fine. Into offense, though, I once again must ask, what is the counterplay? Because I think the team's just, it's not very good at keeping up pace-wise. You have a lot of mons on this build that do exactly 0. Like, this has no way to keep momentum. Vapo doesn't really. I think it got flipped. I don't remember if it has flip turn in this gen, but they don't run it if it does. They don't run it often, I should say. It's usually Heal Bell. This mon, it could be Teleport. I'm just not moved by Defensive Arcanine. To be fair, though, Pivot Spam into Gallade doesn't sound like the worst idea. I think it's just some of the other components hurt me. It's like too many bad Pokemon on one team, you know? Like Arcanine's kind of bad. Palisade's pretty bad. Silvally Steel, I don't think it's very good. And Vaporeon's pretty bad. I'm kidding. It's good in this gen. But still, versus offense, I'm just like, the team's slow and not exactly filled with immediate power. So I don't know how well you match up against it. You're very reliant on a Scarf mode to always position you properly. It's rough. Pivot Spam is good, because as long as you get the pivoting going right, maybe you can keep up the momentum. Maybe you can just always have what you need out in front of the Pokemon that you need it out versus. But it isn't really an angle I like. It is electric terrain, so I have nothing to add other than Sparky the Pincurchin is going to bleed and immediately make this game easy, because the Gallade does not KO it with CC, and Rising Voltage super smacks it. That crit did not matter. So that's a great turn 1. His Phantom then sacks the Big Gurchin here. It has done what it needed to do. The Gallade was like the one threat on this team. So Mow comes out in the Voltage. It does nothing, which I find incredibly disrespectful. And it's fine, though. So you Volt here. You could bring out Decidueye. Berta meets on the Leaf Storm. If you want here, this is a free Sword stance. I also think you could double on the Arcanine always here. Probably bringing out this again. Yeah. So Max comes back out. And once again, you get Voltage. Psychic's also a really good play, though. Better play, too, because, I mean, they're not staying in with that mon. So, would have caught Rotom-Mow, one-shot it. They go Rotom-Mow here. They don't have a better play, really, other than going Vaporeon protecting, which they didn't choose to do. So, they lose their Mow as well. Arcanine gets Volted on here. There's really not a ton to talk about from here. Yeah. And since it's defensive Arcanine, too, the Silvally definitely is faster, which is not good. But, yeah. This is maybe not the most eventful series, but I kind of like covering some of these offense teams because they're just very fun to showcase what you've got options-wise. So the Croconaw gets to plot up, and since it's bulky Arcanine, once again, I will say this is probably just faster, which you are. The Sludge Wave KOs that, and now the Silvally Steel comes out. This is basically just him hoping the Croak is Focus Blast and that he misses twice. But unfortunately for Luis, this is Vac Wave, so he just KOs. And it's Sludge Wave, KOs the Vapo. So, you know, very strong series from Phantom. The offense picks worked incredibly well. And like again, on this team, I just think you need to make sure your Dark-type matchup's a bit better. Gourgeist is going to be a magnet for them as is, and you saw Power Whip. It would have 2-shot without bulk boosts. The problem is once this bulks up, you'd have nothing on your team that meaningfully threatens it. And even something like a Guzzlord would give you issues from a breaking stance. Drapion even. Drapion if it's Shuckaberry, I should specify. Shuckaberry Drapion is like also death for this team because your Silvally will not be able to revenge it with multi. And then you just Aqua Tail it, and that boy is gone. But I hope y'all enjoyed. Let me know down below, once again, what's your favorite part about Gen 8 in you? Do you... Actually, too, here's another question. If there was one Pokemon that you could free in Gen 8 in you, I already know Lucario's answer to this. That man wants Tornadus freed every day of the week. If there was one Pokemon you could free from our ban list in Gen 8, what would it be? I don't know what mine is. I feel like I'd free Dragalge, though. Make these Vaporeon balance spammers cry a little bit more. Thanks for watching, though. I'll catch you next time. Peace.